Welcome into the Oh Health Yeah podcast, brought to you by Healthy is Wellness. As you all know, our mission is to empower you to take control of your health and elicit a little bit of curiosity in your life when it comes to the world of wellness. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And if you have loved ones or friends that you think would benefit from this, share it with them. Let's get this thing going. Welcome in, Healthy is Wellness family. Today, we're going to be talking about why muscle matters to businesses. We recently dropped an episode where it talked about why muscle matters to each of us as individuals, but we wanted to drop another one that ties into why it matters to businesses and groups. There's going to be a lot of numerical focus here, but as always, at the end of this, we're going to leave you with one actionable item to take on, whether it's within your workplace, within your business, or within the people around you. So, diving into it, muscle mass is a huge indicator of chronic risk, and we know that. But what we really want to focus on is the workforce productivity impact within this podcast. A lack of muscle shows decreased work performance, reduced ability to perform physical job tasks, higher absenteeism rates, increased disability claims and workers' compensation costs, and early retirement and workforce replacement costs. So I list those things off just to show you the impact that a lack of muscle can have on a workforce. And these impact things, not only are they associated with construction groups or like any form of workplace, but they have impact not only in the workforce, but in their own individual lives as well. You think of a lack of muscle will decrease work performance. I'm sure that's associated with probably a lack of enjoyment of life, a lack of being able to do the things you love. So, this podcast is going to dive into workforce stuff, but we know that a lack of muscle can have negative impact on any aspect of life. Some of the financial burden on businesses that are associated with a lack of muscle: annual marginal healthcare costs about $2,315.70 per person with sarcopenia versus those without. And sarcopenia is associated with a lack of muscle, a lack of the ability to produce force, or a lack of the ability to do certain things. $2,315 per person is what it costs a business versus someone without sarcopenia. People with sarcopenia have a 95% higher odds of hospitalization versus employees without sarcopenia. And on average, when an individual with sarcopenia goes into a hospital visit, it costs a business $260 per person with sarcopenia versus people with baseline muscle mass. All of those values show us how much more costly employees are when they have sarcopenia or when they lack muscle mass. And that's one of the reasons that our program exists. Not only do we want to help people take back control of their health, but we use tools like InBody 770s, grip strength assessments to be able to assess how is force production and also how is your muscle mass. You may be losing weight, you may be gaining weight, who knows? But we utilize these tools to assess, is your muscle mass changing? Are you maintaining or gaining strength? Because if you are, it's not only going to be beneficial for you as an individual, but the economic burden that it has on the businesses when you are going towards sarcopenia or losing muscle mass is huge. So that's one of the reasons that our program exists, is to be able to help when it comes to a lack of muscle within the workplace. One of the craziest things about all of this, whether it's a lack of muscle, whether it's sarcopenia, is that the majority of these things are preventable. Not all, but the majority of them are preventable. And that is preventable through behavior change. We are big believers at Healthy is Wellness and behavior change. And we look at 4 pillars of health: sleep, calm, activity, and nutrition. And we have challenges or steps within all 4 of those realms that can help people take back control of their health. When it comes to things like sarcopenia or a lack of muscle, oftentimes it can be due to a lack of movement, it can be due to a lack of protein intake, it can be due to a lack of rest. But one of the challenges or steps that I want to leave you all with today is this idea of no sugar or flour for breakfast. Whenever you break your fast, can you have proteins and fats? And that challenge itself, I'll talk a little bit about the benefits, but then I really want to dive into how does it benefit the workplace. The challenge itself ties into that first meal of the day, having protein and fat rather than sugar, flour. Reason behind it: when you have protein with your first meal of the day, it sends your body a muscle building signal that, okay, I'm trying to build muscle mass today. Another benefit of it: If you have sugar or flour, when you intake those two things, it spikes the heck out of your blood sugar. What goes up must come down and you crash. And that crash is oftentimes signified by, dang, I'm craving something else sweet, or dang, I need a nap. As Americans, what do we push for breakfast? Anybody throws on their TV, we see commercials of cereal, Pop Tarts, pastries, French toast sticks. Those things are in front of our face. And it's because individuals in that space know that if we have them for breakfast, in turn, we're going to crave more and we're going to buy more. So if you follow the money, you see why the commercials on TV are Wheaties, Cheerios, Captain Crunch. It's because we crave those things. And those foods, when we break our fast with them, do not send our body a muscle building signal, nor do they help us maintain or gain muscle mass. So that's one of the reasons that we like to challenge people with no sugar or flour for breakfast whenever you break your fast. How does this play into the workplace? When I was thinking about this, I wanted to bring up the idea of how many businesses that we have that we service, but all across the country, that have the little dish with the candy sitting on the table, whether it's at your own desk, whether it's in the lunchroom, whether wherever it is within the workplace. So many businesses have little dishes that are full of little chocolates, little Reese's, little candies. And what I would challenge businesses with is, how do you change that and make those little dishes full of proteins and fats? Whether that's things like nuts and seeds, things like meat sticks, cheese sticks. I know those need to stay in the fridge. Having yogurts in the fridge for your employees, those things allow your employees to break their fast with protein and fat, if that's the first thing they eat that day, sends the body a muscle building signal, and also doesn't spike their blood sugar like crazy. In turn, it doesn't cause the cravings throughout the day. So my challenge for you, whether you're a business owner, whether you just work at a business, whether you're in HR, how can you change the culture within your workplace? And instead of having the candy dishes everywhere, how can we have protein and fat snacks that you all can indulge in throughout your workday? Thanks so much for listening.